Hi Daniel, today we are
Hi Jet.
we've done a video on your channel, and
Yeah.
this is sort of an out of the box video.
Okay.
So your channel's in French. I'm very happy to do the interview in English as well with
With
you.
pleasure.
So yeah, go ahead, let's shoot the questions. I know this won't be on your channel, it'll be on another channel, but
Okay.
it'll be interesting to see.
Okay. So for the viewer, let's see in few words who is Jet Grant.
Sure, I'm an IT professional, I'm a
Okay.
finance professional, and I'm a security professional, compliance and security. So I started out my career really as an IT guy, and I was a cypherpunk back in the day. I worked at NATO at the same time doing real crypto. I've done very secure systems, ran an entire section at NATO. Left at the end of 2000, did the big data and data warehousing, and in 2008 I relocated back to Luxembourg to create a company here that does due diligence, a private investigative and due diligence company. In 2014 I created KYC3, which is a company that does big data for KYC and compliance. And in 2016 I started really working on Peer Mountain, but Peer Mountain's an idea I've had since a long time because I was looking for how to solve the problem of trust online, and thinking about that problem really since around 2005 or 6. So it's something that's there. In addition to all the professional stuff, I do a lot of ASBLs as well. Infrachain, for example, where I am a member of the board and a founder,
Yeah.
and the Institute for Global Financial Integrity, and I also have done some teaching at the university as an adjunct professor, teaching compliance in the Masters in Wealth Management program.
Okay. And so what problem Peer Mountain wants to solve?
Trust. At
Trust.
the very base,
Okay.
Peer Mountain is about getting it so that we can have the same level of trust on the internet that we have amongst each other as human beings in a small town. And this is very difficult to do, but given the technology that's there for us today, we can do it. So there were a lot of advances, distributed hash tables, public key cryptography that make this possible. And really blockchain makes it really possible to do it. So with Peer Mountain we're able to build a system that solves the problem of trust. And once you've solved that trust problem, you can solve a whole bunch of other problems. Data protection, where you have GDPR issues and whatnot with self-sovereign identity. You solve the problem of having big silos of personal information that can be hacked, like Equifax. You also, because you decentralize and you really put the information everywhere in the hands of its owner. You also solve problems of compliance and legal, where you solve that for enterprises based on the fact that you have a blockchain where you can actually put your whole audit trail, and it can, all the stakeholders that need to confirm that that audit trail is not manipulated can have that. And Peer Mountain is a hash chain actually, so everything's encrypted everywhere, and in the hash chain we simply store the proof of what was done and when it was done.
Okay. Now it's time for the elevator speech.
Okay.
Let's say we are together in the elevator. I'm an investor, and you want to sell Peer Mountain.
Peer Mountain is a distributed, decentralized ecosystem of trust. With Peer Mountain, it's possible for you to own your identity, to consume services from service providers, and to have a level of trust amongst each other. And it's truly peer-to-peer. So the role of consumer, service provider, and trust provider can be assumed by anybody. You choose who to trust and who to consume services from as a consumer. In this ecosystem, the Peer Mountain token allows the service provider to provide services for which they pay, and the trust provider to receive payment for the trust that they create between two parties.
Good, well done.
Thanks.
So KYC is really in fashion for the last year already. There are a lot of companies doing KYC. There are also some on blockchain like Civic, who is quite successful up to now. What is the difference between Peer Mountain and all these companies?
Most of those companies are doing things like stamping KYC information or creating a middleman position where they validate information so that you don't have to share it with multiple parties.
Okay.
Peer Mountain is actually a distributed, decentralized system, so it's very different in the architecture and the approach. We are not validating anything. We are not providing trust in any way other than having a technology that is trustworthy. We don't see any of the data, we don't decide how it works. It's up to the peers to decide whom to trust and how to structure their trust relationships.
Okay.
And the fact that Peer Mountain is deployed in instances, so a different group of stakeholders run different chain instances, which provides scalability and also provides the enterprise the comfort they need to run the instance and deploy the services they need on their instance. And the magic is the patent pending peer chain that lets us talk to each other.
Okay. So let's talk about technology. What blockchain are you using? Why the blockchain? What is the advantage of the blockchain in terms of Peer Mountain?
Sure. The Peer Mountain is actually enabled by the chain itself, and as I said, it's a hash chain. So what the blockchain is the immutable record of compliant behavior that's carried out in commercial interactions where identity and trust is needed.
Okay.
So that's really needed. Today we are, and as I said, it's a hash chain, so we're putting blinded hashes on there, and that means that you can't, it looks like gobbledygook to anyone who would have access to the chain, but when you know the information you need to know to validate that information, you know what to find on chain, and you can find the proof that this document was validated on the date when it says it was, etc. So that's very important. Today in the alpha that we are building now and we're deploying, it's we're building on Ethereum, so it's basically a semi-private Ethereum network that we're running for each instance. And we're building on Android and iOS for the consumer front end. The back end is a classic enterprise web, and we're using HBase as well as object storage. So basically a lot of encrypted blobs stored in HBase that are referenced from the chain.
Okay. So if it's on Ethereum, I guess you say, so you have token, Peer Mountain token,
yes.
PMT, sorry, PMT token. So what's the use of the token? Do you know already the cost of the token?
The token sale will be well under $1. We're deciding how, for us, functionally, it doesn't matter if the token's 10 cents or 50 cents. It's just a function of how many tokens will be emitted when we do the emission. There will be a fixed number of PMT that will be emitted. 40% will be sold. The rest will be allocated per the white paper. And the function of the token in the Peer Mountain ecosystem is really to value trustworthiness. So the service providers pay in PMT, the attestation providers receive payment in PMT, and there, of course, because it's peer-to-peer, anyone can play all three roles. So a bank might be both attestation provider saying these people have good credit, as well as a service provider saying these people want loans. So they're selling loans and then attesting to the loans that get paid back so that those consumers then have their credit file eventually in their Peer Mountain. And of course, when you have this circular economy of trust where PMT are turning around, some people are going to end up needing more PMT because they're a net service provider, and some people are going to have too much because they are providing mostly attestations. The consumer never pays anything in this relationship. Okay. And so the PMT has to be listed on exchanges so that these parties can balance out the PMT. If they have one has too much, they need to be able to sell it in order to get ETH, Euro, whatever they need to deal with the rest of their life, to pay rent and things like that. And if an institution or service provider needs more PMT, they need to buy them and top up. That said, we know that some large institutions are not going to want to deal with exchanges and buying and selling cryptocurrencies. Yeah. So we will operate a service for them where a client, a Peer Mountain instance, for example, can simply request a top-up service, and every time their wallet gets below a certain amount, we will purchase the PMT for them, load it up, and send them an invoice in their currency.
You mentioned service provider. Do you have example of what can be a service provider?
Anytime a service is exchanged, so a good or service is exchanged, and there's a legal or regulatory requirement to have certain things checked out in that transaction. So it really goes from anything from a financial institution where you have the heaviest regulation possible to do a transaction where you really need to check a lot of things, to more simple things like car rental, but they're still complex, airplane, travel, hotels, all the way down to very simple transactions like buying a drink in a bar, or a drink from a robot bartender, which would be feasible with Peer Mountain, where all you need to do is prove your age and not your identity. We can do this with a zero knowledge proof and a very simple attestation based off of your identity. And so a Peer Mountain enabled network of bars then could have an audit trail that every single drink that their robot bartenders sold was sold to someone who proved that they were over the legal age to buy alcohol. So it's any time you have a requirement to prove that that transaction was done in a certain time.
So we'll not need anymore to take our passport, driving license with us?
Absolutely. You'll get the reutilization of components in an open framework that Peer Mountain is. So we're using X forms to define these. But it's like, and they're like Legos. You put the ones you need for the service. So if you need an ID, you need credit attestation, you need a proof of residence, whatever you need, you put those ones in. And we intend to provide standard ones, so standard forms that are used across industries so that they will be reusable to the maximum.
How do you helping companies to comply with law and regulation? So there is MiFID II, there is GDPR. So what is the position of Peer Mountain?
Peer Mountain does, for GDPR, very interesting things because the consumer, each data creator owns their own data. And so you don't have a lot of cases where you need to become a custodian of someone else's data, which is very high risk in GDPR. You just need to process that data in order to deliver the service or whatnot. So you can actually reduce GDPR risk. Everything in Peer Mountain is encrypted end-to-end, at storage and at rest and in motion. So we can't see anything, no backdoors, nothing. It's really between the service provider, the consumer, and the trust provider who will see that information and attest to it. So it's very secure from that perspective. From the perspective of other regulations like MiFID and these qualification regulations, those are very open because we're providing a framework and an ecosystem where the service provider really defines what they need to deliver the service, and it's up to them. And while we will provide standard forms, like a MiFID form from a fund association will take their model and we will code it so that it can be reused across the board, it is possible to create custom forms as well. But of course, it's like any trade-off in IT, the more reutilization you have, the more components you can reuse, the better it is for the whole ecosystem.
Okay. Let's talk about the team. So besides yourself, who are the key members in the team and how it is organized?
The team is, we're a global team actually.
Okay.
So we're all over the place. But there are key focal elements of the team. So in Buenos Aires, Federico Cardoso is leading the blockchain team. We've got a great team of blockchain developers that worked on several projects, I've known them for several years, and really doing well.
So they worked on really other blockchain projects that are there already?
Yeah, a lot of technology. So of course in the early days, back in 2014, 15, it was mostly proof of concepts and things like that, little projects. But one of the notable projects that many of them have worked on is Mycenas, which did an ICO last year. And the platform's up and running, the technology's there, it's built.
Art token.
Art token,
yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So they have built that along with several other blockchain projects that are not ICO'd, but are already up and running. And they've been working on Peer Mountain. They get it. They're very enthusiastic, and they really see the vision that I share with them. So it's pretty cool. And then the mobile team is based in Bulgaria, and that's Futurist Labs. You'll see them on the partners. And Mark is the CEO there, and Stefan is, and you see all these people in our team sheet, of course. Stefan is the lead architect. Stefan is fantastic, doing a great job. We've really got a nice production going with the mobile app, so the iterations are there and then in sync with the backend. And then I have people everywhere. I have, we of course have KYC3 doing attestation engine technology, all the technology there is being led by Dr. Marcus Forster, CTO of KYC3. And then I have some people that are independent. I have a woman in Moscow who does UX UI design, who's fantastic, grew up in Switzerland. We have some developers in Poland, we have developers in Germany, and then we have a social team. When you get into the social and content production team, I've got people all over the place, from Australia to Prague and to cover all the different languages and whatnot. Our translation team, for example, is all over the globe. So things are pretty cool. It's a big team now, but it's a lot to manage.
So you are supporting many languages for the or you will support many languages?
We will. They're coming online right now. Actually, French went online on our website just the other day, earlier this week.
Japanese.
Japanese is almost done.
Wow.
Chinese is almost done. Italian is almost done. Indonesian is almost done. All of these should be coming online in the next few days. We had a delay with Korean. Our translator had a family issue, had to stop. We're getting another person online. But yeah, all these things should come online pretty quickly.
Good.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit where stands the project? Are you in POC? Are you in MVP? Where do you stand?
It's good to cover maybe also in this question the partners.
Yes.
Okay. So where we stand with the project is Peer Mountain is something I've been thinking about, trust on the internet, really since middle 2000s. And I started coming up with the architecture of how to do it in different ways over the years. And really the architecture that is more or less Peer Mountain today, I filed the first protection for in 2015 actually. And in 2016 I found a partner in a major Swiss financial institution who shared the vision. So I pitched them some standard KYC stuff, and then I said, here's the really innovative visionary project, and if you guys get this, this is phase 2 of the evolution of KYC. This is what's going to happen next. And they got it. They said, we don't want to do the KYC thing, we want to do the visionary thing right off the bat. So we started a co-build together at that point and started looking at details. Signed lots of NDAs, of course, on both sides, mostly their side, because they didn't want to reveal internal procedures and how they work without that. I can't discuss that stuff. And then in early 2017, we signed a letter of intent, and they intend to deploy Peer Mountain as soon as it's production ready. We came with a calendar of where we will be at certain dates. And that included, being demoable last fall. So we did the first demos of Peer Mountain last fall in early October. And we are now headed towards what I would call a stable, strong alpha towards the end of this month, beginning of next month. So we have the mobile app on Android, which is in alpha. We have the platform itself, the architecture of the asynchronous messaging, chain instance, and all that in alpha as well. And the attestation engine technology, which is a little more advanced in beta, and that's with our other partner, who's the German company. Both of these companies are regulated. They have to report to the regulators, so they're under NDA. They don't want to be publicly associated with an ICO. That will be revealed post-ICO because they don't want the regulator giving them problems. The German company has asked us to deliver attestation engine technology early. We actually delivered the first instances of that. It's actually in a Docker container for them at the moment, and they are testing it. So that's actually in beta, the first attestation engine stuff.
And in terms of number of users, can you tell us what's the forecast?
Yeah, the forecast is when we go into production towards the fall of this year. So the first we'll do pilot in the early summer and up to there, and the pilot will probably include several thousand users if we do it right. So it'll be really something done with real customers. But the real production implementation is going to be like 30,000 users a month. Acquisition will be is what we anticipate, and we should be around 1 million users pretty quickly, because there will also be a bunch of users that will be onboarded almost immediately. So that's from the Swiss side, and so then the Swiss side we're looking at 1 million rather quickly, and 3 million over 2019 is the reach of their market. And then with the German company, they have one mobile app in production today with 2.5 million users already on it. They've acquired 9 million new customers over the last 5 years. To give you an idea of their new customer acquisition rate, that's not taking into account attrition, this is purely new customers. And so they anticipate, I don't have figures for their other 2 mobile apps where they want to enable Peer Mountain, but overall the numbers that they've been talking about are in the 9 million range. So altogether I estimate 9 to 12 million customer base by the end of 2019, early 2020, as a minimum.
Good.
Yeah.
I have seen that the ICO is coming very soon.
It is.
Can you tell us a little bit about the ICO, how it will work, the timing?
Yeah, for the ICO, so a lot of people are confused by Smart Cap. The idea of Smart Cap is actually to bring more transparency and make it fairer, so there's actually no hidden pre-sale stuff going on. So the phases of the ICO with the Smart Cap are pretty clear, but they're a little bit different than what many people may be expecting. So we have the whitelisting period, and that's the timer on our website is when the whitelist will close at the latest. We actually extended that because I'm going to do some road shows and I don't want to close it out before we do the promotion.
Where will you go?
I will be at Crypto Valley Zouk at the end of January.
Okay.
So we'll be at the Crypto Explorers events then. I will also be in London in the week of Valentine's Day. My wife's not happy about that. And and then the following weeks, I'll be at the end of February and into the beginning of March. I will do a whirlwind tour of all the major cities of Asia. So Tokyo, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Seoul, possibly Shanghai. We're looking at setting up that agenda. That's not all fixed. I hope to do that. Of course, we have a lot of things to get in the right place in order to make that a worthwhile trip. So there's the whitelist period that we can close at any time, but that we have extended actually to take into account this opportunity creation that we want to give. So it'd be a fair and transparency. So that's why some of the things we're adjusting to make it more fair. When the whitelist closes, then there will be instructions by email, and there's a pre-order phase. So the pre-order phase actually has two parts to it. The first part is a declaration where people will put in basic KYC and say what their intent is for the pre-order. And then once most people have gotten that, because we know some people will just change their mind or whatever, they'll drop off, we'll close that out. And then that's really the end of the whitelist period. And then the pre-order confirmation happens. And that's when these people get a chance to actually confirm their intended. So they'll get the ETH address that will be used for the pre-order sale, and they'll be able to commit their ETH to buy. Then the open sale will happen. And the way the smart cap works is the round zero of that sale is the maximum discount. So the pre-order people are first in line to get that.
How many percent for the...
The total sale will be 40% of the emission.
And for the discount?
30% is the discount at the beginning.
Okay.
So, and there will be an amount of tokens, which we'll parameterize this. It's very hard to give firm figures because the rate of ETH and whatnot changes so drastically. And our rough cap with the smart cap, we're trying to parameterize it so that we expect it to smart cap around 35 million as a cap. So that's, and we'll see, the smart cap should do it around there. But again, when ETH go up and down to 600 to 1200 in one day, you can't be running figures all the time.
Absolutely.
So the round zero they'll go into, and the way it works is we'll try to set the round zero size so that we get sort of that up to market price and cap where we want to cap, and the estimated market price. The price of the token, we haven't decided yet. There's a lot of pressure to push the price down and to have a very low value token. For the functionality of Peer Mountain, it really doesn't matter if the token's 50 cents or 5 cents. It just means we'll issue 10 times more tokens. But it really doesn't matter for us. So it's a question of assessing that demand. And then each round gets bigger in terms of tokens. So round zero will happen. Those whitelisted pre-orders will be first in line to get that 30% discount. And there's two things that play in the priority within the round. It's the size of the order, so bigger orders are given preference in that round. But if a big order comes in later, it does not jump in front of the round. It's each round is a separate block of orders. And so obviously getting in early has an effect as well, because you'll be in that round. And whitelist is first into round zero, so it's really as early as you can get. There is a priority list that is there for institutionals and very, very large whales. It's over 300 ETH. And that the difference between that and the whitelist is just its guaranteed placement in round zero. So that's how it works. The next round will be at a slightly lower discount, so it'll go from 30 to 26 or whatever. And the size of the round gets bigger. And the sale will proceed in rounds like this, and there's a timeout on the rounds, which we'll fix. It's a number of days for the round to close. And when we get to a round where there are more tokens than there are buyers at the price, because we expect, we get up to where the discount is zero, so that's market price. And then we expect the round there to be large enough that there will be buyers there, but it will not complete the whole round. And when that happens, that's what we call the smart cap. So that's when, and we don't know which round. It could be round 3, it could be round 6. It depends really on demand and whatnot. But when we hit that smart cap, the people who have put orders in for the round that doesn't complete, those orders will be filled at the price of the previous round.
Okay, good.
So it's as fair as we can design it.
Okay, thank you, Jet, for answering my questions.
Thank you, Daniel.
Good luck for the ICO and the world tour.
Thanks. I look forward to it. I look forward to seeing you again. Maybe since this is not on your channel, you want to give a short introduction to your channel for people who might speak French.
Yeah, so if you speak French, so you can look at my videos on crypto, of course. It's called Cryptohouse. So Cryptohouse.
On YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah.
Excellent.
See
And
you
if you
soon.
want to learn
Yeah.
French, check out Cryptohouse.
Yeah.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye.